a continent as big as America, emptied into 5 cities. Australia is almost exactly the size of the mainland United States. Nearly 27 million people live there. And you could take almost every one of them and pour them into a thin green crescent along the east and south coasts, a strip you could drive across in a single day. 90% of Australians live on less than 1% of the land. 5 cities hold 2/3 of the entire country. Drive 4 hours inland from almost anywhere and the towns thin out, then the farms, then the roads, until there is nothing but red dirt to the horizon. Everyone assumes they already know why. It is a desert, case closed. But the desert is not the reason. The real reasons are older and stranger, and they start with the dirt itself. This is another file in a simple project, mapping the emptiest places on Earth and working out why they stay that way. Australia is the perfect case because the easy answer is a trap. Yes, the middle is dry, but dry deserts all over the world hold millions of people. Australia's emptiness runs deeper than heat. There are 4 real reasons the interior stayed blank, and the first one is not the weather at all. It is water that you cannot drink and soil that will not grow. First, the scale, because the numbers barely feel real. Australia covers about 2.97 million square miles. That is almost the exact size of the lower 48 United States. You could lay it over America and cover nearly the whole thing. Now count the people. About 27 million. That is close to the population of Texas, spread across an entire continent. It works out to roughly 9 people per square mile, one of the lowest densities of any country on Earth. But even that number lies, because Australians do not spread out. They cling to the edge. Nearly 90% of them live within 50 miles of the sea. Almost the entire population is packed onto around 1% of the land. 5 metro areas, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide, hold close to 2/3 of everyone. Sydney and Melbourne alone hold more than 10 million people between them. Now look at the middle. The interior, an area bigger than India, holds almost no one. The largest inland town in the entire country is Alice Springs, and it has about 25,000 people. One town of 25,000 anchoring a red heart the size of a subcontinent. That is not a low-density country. That is a coastline with a continent bolted onto the back of it. Now the alibi everyone reaches for. It is empty because it is a desert. Sounds airtight, until you look at every other desert on Earth. Phoenix, Arizona sits in the Sonoran Desert and anchors a metro area of nearly 5 million people. Las Vegas is a city of over 2 million in the Mojave. Cairo, one of the largest cities on the planet, sits in the Sahara. Dubai and Riyadh rose straight out of Arabian sand. Deserts do not stop cities. Deserts full of people are completely normal, as long as one thing is true. There has to be water you can move to the people, and land you can farm to feed them. Phoenix has the Colorado River. Cairo has the Nile. Riyadh pumps deep fossil aquifers it can actually use. Every thriving desert city on Earth is quietly plumbed into a river or an aquifer that works. And that is exactly where Australia's luck runs out. Because the Australian outback is not just hot and dry. It is hot and dry sitting on top of the oldest, most broken plumbing of any continent on the planet. The heat is real. The heat is survivable. What is not survivable is what sits underneath it. So if people can build Phoenix and Cairo and Dubai in a desert, why not the middle of Australia? Because 2 things went wrong here at once, in a way almost nowhere else on Earth ever did. The water and the ground. Reason 1. There is almost no usable water in the middle, and the water that is there will kill a farm. Look at a map of Australia's rivers, and something is missing. There is no great inland river system. No Mississippi, no Nile, no Volga cutting through the heart of the country. The rivers that do exist inland are ephemeral. They flow for a few weeks after rare rain, then vanish back into the sand for years. The largest lake in the country, Lake Eyre, is bone dry most of the time. It has filled to capacity only a handful of times in the last 160 years. You cannot build cities on a river that shows up once a decade. Now, there is water underground. Australia sits on the Great Artesian Basin, one of the largest reserves of groundwater on the planet, stretching under a fifth of the continent. It sounds like the answer. It is not. The water down there is ancient. Some of it fell as rain almost 2 million years ago. It comes up scalding, often hotter than 60 degrees Celsius, hot enough to cook with. And it is heavily mineralized, salty enough that toward the center of the basin it is only fit for cattle to drink. You can water a few sheep with it. You cannot irrigate crops with hot salt water without slowly poisoning the ground. So the inland has a river that appears once a decade, and an ocean of water underground that is too hot and too salty to grow food. A place with no reliable water cannot feed a city, and a place that cannot feed itself stays empty. Reason 2, and this is the one almost nobody outside Australia knows. Even where you could find water, the ground itself is close to dead. Australia has the oldest, most weathered, most nutrient-starved soils on Earth, and there is a strange reason why. Most of the world's good farmland was handed a gift it never earned. In North America and Europe, Ice Age glaciers scraped the continents down to fresh rock and ground up new mineral soil around 20,000 years ago. Everywhere else, volcanoes kept coughing up fresh nutrients from deep underground. Australia got neither. It is too flat and too far from the poles to have been glaciated, and it has been geologically quiet, with almost no volcanoes, for tens of millions of years. So its soils just sat there, weathering in place, for millions upon millions of years while the rain slowly rinsed the nutrients out of them. Australian soils are famously starved of phosphorus, the single nutrient plants need most, along with nitrogen and key trace elements. Farmers can fix small patches with heavy fertilizer, and along the wetter coast they do. But you cannot fertilize a subcontinent. Across most of the interior, the soil simply will not support the dense, productive farming that feeds a large population. No water, then no soil. The middle of Australia was disqualified twice before anyone even tried to settle it. Reason 3. It is not that nobody tried. It is that almost everybody who tried failed. For most of the 1800s, colonists were convinced there had to be a giant inland sea in the center of Australia, a hidden ocean behind the deserts. In 1844, the explorer Charles Sturt dragged a whaleboat hundreds of miles into the outback, ready to sail on water that did not exist. He found blistering rock and dry lake beds instead, and nearly died out there. The inland sea was a fantasy. What sat in the middle was the opposite, one of the driest surfaces on the planet. Then came the schemes to force it. In the far north, grand irrigation projects promised to turn the tropics into farmland. The Ord River scheme and the Humpty Rice project poured in money and machinery, and were largely defeated by poor soil, pests, floods, and sheer distance. Town after inland town was founded on a mine and then hollowed out when the ore ran dry. Even the capital tells the story. Australia could not choose between Sydney and Melbourne, so it built a brand new city, Canberra, from scratch in the bush as a compromise, and even Canberra sits just inland of the coastal belt, not out in the true interior. The pattern is brutal and consistent. Every serious attempt to fill the center ran into the same wall of no water and no soil, and quietly retreated back toward the coast. Reason 4 is the quietest one, and it may be the most permanent. Once almost everyone is on the coast is where everyone has to stay. Australia's population grew up around a handful of coastal ports, the places ships could actually reach. The jobs went there. The universities, the hospitals, the airports, the money, all of it pooled into the same thin crescent from Brisbane down through Sydney and Melbourne to Adelaide. Today, that crescent is self-sealing. A young Australian looking for work does not weigh a career in Sydney against a homestead in the Simpson Desert. The choice is Sydney against Melbourne against Brisbane. The empty middle is not even on the menu because there are no jobs, no services, and no reason for them to appear. It is the same loop that keeps every empty place empty. People do not move where there is nothing, so nothing ever gets built, so people never move there. Alice Springs, that lone town of 25,000, sits more than 900 miles from the nearest capital city in any direction. It is not a stepping stone into a filling interior. It is a single lit window in a dark room the size of a continent. So put the whole file together. It is not simply the heat. Deserts from Phoenix to Cairo prove that people will happily live in a furnace, as long as the furnace is water they can move and land they can farm. Australia has neither. It is a continent with no great inland river and a buried ocean too hot and too salty to grow a single crop. It is the oldest, most nutrient-stripped soil on Earth, robbed of the glaciers and volcanoes that fed every other continent. It is a century of failed dreams, from an inland sea that was never there to irrigation schemes that drowned in bad ground. And it is a coastal crescent that now quietly locks everyone in place. 95% of Australia sits almost empty, not because no one was brave enough, and not because the heat was too much, but because the land itself keeps quietly saying no. That is the pattern this channel exists to map over and over. The emptiness that makes a place feel endless and wild is almost always the same force that makes it impossible to fill. This is No One Lives Here, where we map the emptiest places on Earth and the reasons they stay that way. Next file, we leave the deserts for something far stranger. A border so tangled it trapped more than 100 towns inside the wrong country. Little islands of one nation stranded deep inside another. Subscribe, and we will see you on the next map.